Say that one more time. On
And then
top
we
of
ate with we dipped water out of that with a dipper and drank from that.
Wait, this was what? Say that one more time.
We had a pump, and we'd bring in a pail of water,
Yeah.
and it was standing on the top of some kind of a stool, steps going up to it, which I was using for a way to climb up to the cupboard, which I knew they had a lollipop for me in there, so I spilled the whole darn pail, and she had to clean it up because my dad was out in the farm. She had to mop it up, and I remember her saying, "Now, young one, you're going to get it when your father comes home. Young one?" She called me not Henrietta, but young'un. So he just laughed. He thought it was pretty cute because I knew I was smart enough to get the candy. How else? But then she was annoyed because she had felt bedroom slippers. She wore her bedroom slippers all the time because she never did any work. I guess she had shoes, but so she got her bedroom slippers wet, so that's what made her mad when I spilled the water. But anyway, we had to give up the house and moved in with Grandpa. So that
Wait, Graham, before we go on to living with Grandpa, can you tell us about a regular day on the farm and did you have any toys and what games did you play?
When my father was alive, that part of my life?
When you lived in that house. About what was it like to live on that farm and what kind of animals and the crops and what you ate and just things like that. And
I think probably, I don't have too good of a recollection of that, but I know that...
you remember the lollipop.
Oh, yeah. And we also had a chicken coop, chicken house, with lots of chickens, and they, of course, laid eggs in the nest, and somehow my mother was able to have a camera at that early age of me with a little basket with eggs in it. So I know we had plenty of good eggs. We had milk from the cows. We had cats, of course. When you have cows, you have to have cats because there's a way in which they get the milk from the cows into the pail, and the farmer would be sitting on a little stool milking the cow, and here comes a cat along, and he could squirt milk into the cat's mouth with a good aim. So, and we had lots of good vegetables, but I hated vegetables. I was a picky eater, so my mother would let me pretend I was making my own soup, and she'd be chopping vegetables to put in her pot, and she'd give me a little bit so I could kind of play, and that's how she got me to eat vegetables. But I don't think we had anything exotic, but my mother was a pretty good cook and was able to make do with what we had. I don't remember any toys except a few dolls. I never even liked dolls much.
Oh, really?
No, I never was a cuddly, lovey kind of doll player. But we always had cats. And we had a dog named Sheppy, short for shepherd, and it was a stray that came running across our yard. And my Aunt Carolyn was visiting from Florida, so she went right to the refrigerator and got a piece of meat and held it out. And the dog came and stayed for years.
She was visiting from Florida?
Yeah.
How did she get up there from Florida?
She had a friend who drove, and she came, and as a matter of fact, I think that was the summer before my daddy died. So I think she stayed on for a few months. She had a husband in Florida and a mother-in-law, but they had moved down there, and she was kind of isolated from the family because people didn't travel, but she did know somebody that had a motor car, and she was able to drive up, and she visited us.
That must have taken weeks to get there.
Yeah, but she loved dogs, and she especially had a way with them, so with very little effort she charmed this Sheppy, and we had Sheppy for years. But when we moved up to Grandpa's, Aunt May didn't like Sheppy because Sheppy would go and jump in the creek and go swimming, and then dogs come and shake themselves, and then Sheppy would sleep, and you'd leave a certain amount of dirt or water on the rug or the floor. So eventually I think Sheppy was replaced, and Sheppy went to live with somebody else. I don't remember what happened, but Aunt May definitely didn't want a dog, but we had cats. But as far as when I lived with my mother and father, he used to let me ride on the horse's back. That was fun. And when he was driving the horses, pulling a load of hay, we got to jump on the hay, which was kind of scratchy but fun, rolling in the hay. And I don't think I ever had anything too exciting in the line of games, but
will you just say your parents' full names so that we have it on tape?
Sure. My mother was Edna Clara Winters. She married Harry J. Burgott.
Okay.
Okay, and his parents were Jacob Burgott and Elida Tucker Burgott.
And Super Graham's parents were
John Charles Winters and Henrietta, oh, wait a minute, Poehls, Pales was her maiden name. Poehls. I think she may have had a middle name, but I don't know it. Not sure. But that's a whole other story, because she had been married or involved before she met my grandfather, and she was a cook, a famous cook, at this hotel, which was a summer resort on Lake Erie, and she was the chief cook, apparently very good, but somehow she had a child, and whether or not she was married and divorced, or we don't know, but my mother never asked her, or she never let on what happened. But when Grandpa met her, she had a son named Lee, and as soon as he married her, he legally adopted Lee. So that was their brother Lee. They never distinguished, as he was not their John C. Winters' son. I even have the adoption papers.
Oh, wow.
Yep, because when Carlton had collected all that stuff, he was interested in genealogy. My cousin Carlton, Uncle Charlie's son. And when he died, his wife turned over his genealogy papers to his sister, and he had saved. We have the deed to that farm in Brant, a lot of papers for mortgages and different transactions, and the adoption papers were in there.
Oh, wow.
His name was Lee Alpert, Alpert. Whether or not he did have a father, he had that last name, and then he became Lee Winters, Lee Stanley Winters, and that was my mother's big brother. And
then who came next? How many children did they have?
Then they had Fred. His name was, I was telling Jürgen, his name was Frederick Wilhelm Winters.
That's Daddy's middle name.
Mm-hmm. And then they had May Elizabeth Winters, and they had Edna Clara Winters, and Charles John Winters, CJ.
Good.